So let's see if this records.
Come on.
Let's talk about
Colts.
Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the
Bad.
things that make me. Let's talk about
Colts.
Let's talk about
Colts.
Let's talk about
Colts.
Let's talk about
Colts.
Alright, so it's been a little while since I made a video. I've been super busy with podcasts. Going to remain super busy with podcasts for a while. And I wanted to go ahead, though, and take a minute to make a video because there's been something that's been on my mind. The subject came up because of a story that kind of popped up into my head this week. And the subject matter is the importance of thinking for oneself. Not just accepting things as they are, not refusing to look into things or to investigate things. And the reason it came up is because I was thinking about a car, and I don't know, the subject of my dad came up in my head, and his first new car was a Dodge Dart. Now, again, this is just a story that was told to me. I cannot verify any of this, but my dad loved his Dodge Dart. Great car, thought it was super cool, first new car. He had worked very hard, from what I understand, to get this car. And at some point it developed a knock. Now, you know, a knock in a car can be many things. My dad apparently believed it to be an engine knock. I don't know why. Did he take it to a mechanic who told him it was an engine knock? Or did he just think so in his head? He kind of, I guess, got the idea that it was just, this was it. It was done. So he went out and bought a new Mustang and gave his brother the Dodge Dart. Now, you know, maybe the man just wanted a new Mustang. If that's the case, more power to you. But even at that, he probably could have sold his Dodge Dart if he would have done any investigation. So, from what I was told, the culprit of the knock ended up being a rock in the hubcap. It wasn't the engine. The car wasn't dying. He had a rock in the freaking hubcap. And he did no investigation, and he got rid of the car he loved because of it. That was my dad. He was kind of ripe for the cult picking, if you think about it. He never really investigated much. Ironically, he was completely an authoritarian. It was all about power. What he says went. No questions asked. Do not ask a question. It just makes it worse. There's no rhyme or reason to anything. He said so, therefore it is. And somehow he was attracted to that in the cult. You wouldn't think that an authoritarian would be attracted to authoritarians, but he was. And he never questioned anything. He did manage to not join for a little while. I mean, my mom studied first, and I think it was the next year my dad got baptized. So she got baptized one year, he got baptized the next. Or maybe they got baptized at the same time, but he just studied later. I can't remember. And again, can't ask. But regardless, you see a man here who's not really looking at life through his own eyes and trying to figure things out. He's just kind of taking them as they come, and honestly, denial was a big part of my dad's life. We can spin that farther. My dad, when he was 50 years old, was told that he had blood sugar issues. Now, let's get to how he was told he had blood sugar issues. He was wasting away as a human being. And an elder in the congregation, I think it was because my mom was so concerned and had gone to the elders, they actually stepped up for once, and they kind of cornered my dad with, one of the elders did, with a blood sugar meter. And they tested my dad, and his blood sugar was astronomical. And so you'll say, oh, you know, I mean, that kind of stuff can happen to a person. I mean, he was wasting away and not going to doctors. But, you know, that can happen. Well, I found out that, like, when he was 20 or something like that, he had been drafted into the Army. And they turned him away. because his blood sugar was astronomical and his blood pressure was astronomical. And from what I was told, he was told, son, you need to go get this taken care of. And when he was 50, he did. So you can see that he wasn't exactly a man of action and a man who was taking care of things. So at 50, the doctors are pretty much like, wow, your kidneys, you should have failed and shut down by now. You've got a second chance at life here, buddy. You better take it. Here's some medication. Here are some dietary changes you need to make. Well, you can guess where that went. He was non-compliant on the medication a lot of the times, and he was super non-compliant on the diet, regulations. So, I don't know. It was in his late 50s as he was approaching 60. I got a call from my mom, and basically she had caught him throwing up in the bathroom, and he was wasting away again, and apparently he had been throwing up for around about a month. Wasn't telling anyone. He hid that. He couldn't keep down water. At this point where my mom discovered it, it was that bad. And basically I was brought in once again to speak to my dad, to be the person to tell him what was going to happen. And so I gave him two choices. He can go to the hospital voluntarily, or I can pick his weak ass up and take him to the hospital. Or I guess there was a third option. He could just pass out eventually, and we'd call an ambulance, and he'd end up at the hospital. So the next day, he did go. Doctors said that essentially his kidneys had shut down, and if he had continued on probably 24, 48 hours, he would have died. And it was around that time also that we found out that my dad had been blind in one eye for probably at least a year. And again, he didn't tell anybody. So he had this diabetes that was just getting worse and worse and worse. He had neuropathy in his legs and feet. He'd stagger around. He would still give public talks at the Kingdom Halls, staggering around up there. I believe he kind of passed out one time or something. I mean, the man had all kinds of problems, but he'd still, of course, be doing whatever that freaking cult told him to do. He would do it because they told him to. And he didn't question anything. And you can see in one example here what not questioning things can get you. It can cost you your car. It can cost you your life. It can cost you your eyesight. It can cost you your ability to walk. My dad never questioned anything. He just muddled through life. Never seemed like a really happy guy. Fairly depressed. Maybe he never really wanted to live. I don't know. I always kind of felt that way about him. But my dad didn't look at things. And when you think about it, the cult conditioned all of us in such a way as to not question things, not look at things. I was a person, for some reason, I'm just naturally wired this way. I questioned so many things. I wanted to learn about things. I'm very kind of a little ADHD, and I analyze everything because my brain is constantly going. And so I've got that natural bent. But I rarely ever questioned the cult, the teachings, the indoctrination. I certainly never questioned the Bible or God or any of that. And we, as ex-Jehovah's Witnesses now, we at some point have questioned at least the cult. We've at least questioned parts of that, hopefully. And I realize there are a lot of people who leave it, and maybe they're disfellowshipped for some behavioral reason, whatever, some moral sin. And so they're kicked out for that reason, and then they kind of walk away, and they never really look at it, and they just feel shame and like they're a terrible person or whatever. And this can go on for a long time before a person actually starts allowing themselves to look at it. And if you think about it, looking at it in that aspect, it's very uncomfortable. The first time you start to look at the doctrine that we were taught, or if you go beyond that and start looking at the Bible or God or whatever, when you start questioning these things, it is so uncomfortable. And to me, that's all the more reason to question them. In fact, the more uncomfortable it makes you, the more you can kind of realize that your emotions are guiding you. That's not a way to lead a very evidence-based life, when your emotions will allow you to think certain things or to base your life on certain things that may or may not even be true. And so what I was wanting to do was just encourage everybody to question things, especially once you're out. Find people that are doing better than you at whatever it is that you're struggling with, and start reading books or start asking people that in your life that you know. People want to help, and they would probably be honored and flattered, to be honest, that you would approach them. You know, let's say that you struggle with money. It could be the making of money or the keeping of money, or the investing of money for the future. Find someone that is doing better than you and ask. And I know, money is one of those things that people feel all kinds of shame around. It's one of those, it's about as taboo as sex and religion. Politics. The politics aren't very taboo anymore. Everybody talks about them in fights. But it's a subject matter that's very personal to a person. And what you do with money reflects a lot of who you are, and that's your strengths and also your weaknesses. And it's not fun to look at our weaknesses. But if we don't start to question those things, it's denial. It's my dad living day after day like nothing is wrong from the time he's 20 to basically the time he died at like 63, I think. And he could have lived a lot longer, but he just ran his body. He just crashed it by not heeding any warnings, not heeding any counsel, not looking for anything better. In fact, the only reason he ever got better or did anything was because I was brought in a couple times to make him or to force him, push him very hard to do things that were right for him. And he was just that guy. My dad, if he lost a job, he didn't go get a new job. He kind of waited for somebody to bring him a new job. He worked for me for a while in my cleaning business. And for a couple of years until something happened in our business and we lost some contracts. And those contracts included the places that he worked at for us. And in a scramble just to make sure we were taken care of, my wife and I, we couldn't employ him anymore. And he just lived on some inheritance money that they had gotten pretty much and didn't even go get a job. So he, until the money starts running really low, that's just the kind of person that he was. And we all have some of that in us. Maybe we don't live in the amount of denial that he did, but we all have some of that in us. There are things we're afraid to look at, and we need to look at them. Because if we don't, we will stay exactly where we are. We will be stuck. Our life can't progress. We can't get better. And essentially what we're doing is, we're giving away a car. We're giving away our life. We're giving away happiness just so we don't have to look at something. Just so we don't have to feel uncomfortable. I heard it said once that comfort is like crack. It keeps you exactly where you are. It feels good right now, so you just keep doing it. So, even comfort can be bad. We can be comfortable in awful situations or circumstances. We can adapt to those. My wife used to always talk about how she was content. That was the word, content. And we would have these discussions. We'd have these arguments about life. And was it okay to live a life where... So content was essentially a word that was a way to live in denial in a lot of ways. And she'd tell you as much. Now, I mean, there is true contentment, but you can also, which is a person who has done healthy things and found happiness and is in a good place, and maybe constant striving isn't healthy either. There is a point at which you get to a place and you're in a great place. You continue to try to grow, but maybe you don't push quite as hard. It doesn't have to be an all the time thing that's super uncomfortable. That could be contentment. I can get on board with that. But having a sucky life and saying that you're content is just swinging life away. It's sitting on a porch swing, everything goes by, swinging life away, and you're never going anywhere. You're staying in that same spot. You feel like you're moving, but you're moving back and forth, and you're not getting anywhere. So now that we have the freedom as people who left a cult, we need to exercise our thinking ability. And I mean, it really is exercise. You have to keep doing it. You'll get better as you continue to do it. As you question things, as you research things, you'll start to be able to pick out what's bullshit in the world and what's not. You'll start to be able to pick out who you can trust and who you can't, or what's a good thing to pursue or what's not, or just find yourself. What do you like yourself? You can't really find that without questioning things. And failure will come as you do this. You'll try things and it won't work, but it's not really failure. It's just life is an experiment, and sometimes you experiment and things go one way, sometimes they go another way. If you can kind of divorce or detach yourself from the results to some degree, I mean, it always hurts when things don't go like you would hope, but things aren't always going to go like you hope. So just keep trying. I just wanted to bring up that we wouldn't be free today from a cult, my wife and I, if it wasn't for the act of questioning things. And I was the one who originally questioned things, and my wife struggled with that. And there was a moment in time where we were driving to work, and I couldn't hold it in when I saw things about the cult that were, when they would say things that were untrue, when they would demonize people on the outside. Once I started seeing what real love was and emotional health and things like that, when I would start seeing the toxic environment at the Kingdom Hall or through the pages of the Watchtower or whatever, I would start openly questioning. I was going through a thing and I couldn't hold it in. What was it, like Jeremiah said? It was like a fire in his bones or something like that would consume him if he didn't get it out. It was like that. And my wife, one day when we were driving, I don't remember if it was to a job or what, but I told her, I said, look, we all have doubts. Everybody has them. If you voice those doubts and you don't like it, you can pick up those doubts, put them back in your pocket, and we don't have to discuss them anymore. But I was just asking her one time to be open about her doubts and to be open about where she had struggles with the truth. And it was through that one time of her letting her guard down, facing the uncomfortable, emotionally difficult thing of facing her doubts and expressing them, voicing them for the first time. Once she did that, the rest is history. It's not like it happened overnight. It still probably took us a year or two. I don't know exactly where that was on the timeline, but it still took us time to actually disassociate and get out of Jehovah's Witnesses. But it would have never happened if she hadn't have allowed herself to be open to questioning uncomfortable things. If that hadn't happened, we'd still be in a... Well, no. We would be divorced, and she would still be in a cult. That is what would have happened. Because that stuff at that point, I wouldn't... some people can support their physically in, mentally in spouses. I was disgusted, and there's just no way I could have done it. it would have destroyed our marriage, I'm sure. And I'm glad it didn't. Very, very, very glad that it didn't. And that's not where it ends, though. And in the 3 years that we've been out, it's not like things have been smooth sailing and like we haven't had to question things. We now actually probably have more things we can question in life than we ever did. And it's not always been easy, but life is 1,000 times better than it ever was in a life without questioning. And it's scary to question because now you have all these possibilities. Anything could happen once you start questioning, right? But what's scarier is staying stuck in one place your whole life because you don't have what it takes, or you are fear-based and afraid, or whatever the case. If there's something that's preventing you from questioning things, and you stay in that Groundhog Day of living that same life day after day and nothing really ever changes, you can call it content, but it's going to be very difficult to actually be happy. And my dad was never happy. And for a long time, I was not happy. My wife was not happy. She thought she was content, but she'd tell you today that she wasn't. She just didn't know how to express it. She didn't know how to address it. She didn't know how to question. And some of that is because we were never taught to. We were never allowed to. So I just wanted to put this out there. I hope that it helps somebody out there today or tomorrow or whenever they watch this to look at something in your life. I don't care what it is. If there's an area of your life right now, if you sat down and said, you know what, this area of my life really hurts. I'm not happy in it, whether it's relationships, whether it's money, whether it's your employment or whatever. Look at that thing and start asking hard questions and make yourself sit there in the uncomfortable feelings that come along with that until you realize that there are other options. And other options don't always mean blowing up everything in your life. But things in life aren't binary. It's not A or B. How about C, D, E, F? How about some combination of those things? Whatever it is in your life, take a look at it right now, today, by the end of the day, tonight, whatever, and start asking questions. And feel free to post in the comments something that you're struggling with. Maybe somebody has some advice. And then when you ask for advice, take it. At least listen to it. Don't get defensive, because that's that uncomfortable feeling that comes up in you. Don't let your ego keep you from being happy, because it will. Your ego, your pride, well, I'm this, and if you are better than me with money or whatever, well, I must be a piece of crap. So, or maybe you think I'm a piece of crap, so I'm going to bow up and get defensive. Don't do that. Don't do that. It's not serving you. It doesn't serve any purpose other than to keep you stuck. And that's all I have to say. So I hope this helps somebody out there. I'd love to, if there's comments under this, people who are stuck with certain things, let's talk about it. I certainly don't have a perfect life, but I've overcome a lot of things in my life. I've gotten out of $58,000 worth of tax debt. I've dropped 50 pounds. I've gotten out of a cult. I've learned some things. I've started businesses. I've done things. So I'll help if I can. I'm sure there are other people out there who have done some things that can help as well. Doesn't mean we don't have our weak spots, and maybe we should ask for help too. Heck, I don't know. Maybe I'll try to think of something and put it in the comments myself. Especially if I can get some other comments from other people. So I'd like to see what you're struggling with. Post it below. Let's talk about it and see what happens. Can't hurt anything, right? Life's an experiment. Let's see what happens. Talk to you later. Bye.